Oh, there he is, missing two somebodies. Failed. So it's the same way it left us. So is there even? I did hit the panel once, and we were done. We had it all done when we finished before. Are we just summarizing, or do we got more work to do? Oh, okay. Yeah. We've just been through and then we've been through, I don't know how many house bills we did on committee the whole today, but it's a gob and they're still going. So kind of give us a rebate and get us or a rebate. A recap.
The House amendments on the first 8 identical and all of the Senate amendments on the second 8 identical. On page 2, you adopted both of the amendments that are effective immediate, which is number 35 and 47, no money. You adopted, one was a Senate second reading amendment number 35, and item number 47 was House second reading amendment number 13. You also deleted and further amended item number 36 to provide for $445,000. And in the event any of those funds are not expended, they would revert at the end of the calendar year 2022. On page 3, you adopted deleted and further amended number 52, 53, and 54. And the resulting action was $250,000 effective immediate, $2 million for the biennium, and included the Senate language on conditions for collections of demographic information. You also adopted number 59 on page 3, which was Senate second reading amendment number 37, and removed district courts from the workload study. And that's where you left it.
Okay. All right. I mean, we don't have anybody from the treasurer's office here, do we? No. Okay.
No, Mr. Chairman, but you did have a number of requests. I did email you responses. The retirement system sent an evaluation, and a quick summary of that. I believe they're also present is 0.05% is the impact of the $6.3 million for the one-time check as to the unfunded liability percentage. I believe Ms. Legursky from the governor's office prepared a memo illustrating how highway patrol troopers would be impacted depending upon their performance. And I think there is a hard copy handout of that summary on each of your desks. And it illustrates their current pay, the governor's proposal, which is what JAC adopted in House Bill 1 and Senate File 1, and then a third column with the House amendment of the additional $10.8 million for a trooper one.
He's talking about this. He's talking about this.
Which line number?
Yes, and in terms of the amendment, it would appear on page 4,
What's the
item
very
number
last one?
69.
The very last item. This is that 13th payment. The 13th payment, and that's what this memo is talking about.
No, the 74 is retirement. This is about extra.
This is about it. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm up to speed now.
Yeah.
That's correct. I just finished discussing line 74, which was the retirement analysis. The second handout relates to item number 69, which is the increased employee compensation. Mr. Chairman, there is I emailed it. And we'll get a hard copy prepared for you as well. We're
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, thank you. The amendment actually provides for the big plan as well as proportional treatment for all other plans. So all except Fire A, they're excluded, but every other plan would also benefit from the same formula. And that is noted in subsection C. So the law enforcement plan, Fire B plan would also be treated similarly.
I'm just curious about that because a lot of those plans they're structured differently. And so that bell curve payout will have a substantially different effect on the participants. Isn't that right, Dave? So I just didn't really think about that when we did this.
Thank you. Don, on that retirement question, where we passed out fireman A, and as a condition of that fireman A, there's no additional COLAs, so then would they or would they not be included in this?
Mr. Chairman, they would not be included, not because of the bill, but because of the amendment was specifically excluded Fire A.
Well, and for example, it doesn't make any sense to me to give it to judges because they're fully funded. The fund is doing well, so to give them an additional contribution. Pulling from Fire B, there are issues with the Fire B fund, and it probably needs to be protected more than other funds. So I just think, personally, I'd like to kind of reconsider that component of this if we kick this thing out.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I think from our perspective, we're really struggling with this concept. At the end of the day, and I know this sounds alarmist, but this is exactly how Fireman A got started. And so they looked at a benefit that said, oh man, all the actuarial stuff says it's super sound, and off it went. And so so when we start down a road, particularly when we're giving a supposed one-time COLA to plans that did not anticipate COLAs. As a whole, we just really struggle with that on this end, where we have worked so hard to get these plans all in the right trajectory. Some of them are very healthy. Some of them are making great progress, and we're just really struggling with that concept, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Co-Chair.
Surprise, surprise.
Go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
I think part of it's the concept. It's the ongoing expectation and obligation. And so what happens 4 years from now when we have more retirees that are on the system and say, well, those guys got a COLA, how come I don't get What's fair about that? We're still at 74, 75 actuarially sound. Once you start down this road, I just don't see how you're ever gonna stop the tide, because it's all about an issue of then fairness and equity. And so if you're gonna do it now, just be prepared to continue to keep this, you know. And I guess that's my question is, so I look at this thing, are we prepared to do this? How often? What's the threshold? What's the metrics? Is it 74% when we hit that? Is that going to be the new expectation that whenever we're 74 point, whatever it is, actuarially sound, that triggers a COLA? Because that would be the only fair thing. Are we ready to do it? That becomes a question, strictly a policy question. But I don't think you can do this now and then come back in 4 years and deny somebody else a COLA. And then 4 years after that, without some sound policy or directive to say when that wouldn't kick in, because it looks pretty damn arbitrary at that point in time. And I don't think that's a fair way to look forward when you're looking at people that are going to be on this system for a long time. You should have a reasonable expectation of what certainty is. Right now, the certainty is if you didn't put in enough money for a COLA, you don't get a COLA. Let's go ahead and start doing it and change the expectation. How many times? For how many people? And I look at this, it's a policy question. And I look at the policy, I say, what's backing it up? And I could use some help with that, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure we're clear. This item number 74 on page 4 is not a COLA. It is a one-time 13th check paid for by the retirement system. Not arguing for or against it, but I think that using the word COLA is incorrect because this is not an ongoing cost of living adjustment. Again, it is a one-time 13th check is how you could look at it. And I would argue that note that the legislature has done this a few times since the early 2000s on occasion. I was not in the legislature always when those took place. I don't know what the reasoning was, but I know that it was always implemented as a one-time 13th check and never a change in policy to create an actual cost of living adjustment that's ongoing. Again, not trying to argue one way or the other. I just want to make sure that we're using the right words here and note that this is not a COLA.
So Don, when was the last time has this passed through either body before, or when was the last time this happened for any of the funds?
Mr. Chairman, I don't recall that we had a actual COLA through around 2011, 2012. 2008, excuse me.
But have we had one-time adjustments?
We have had multiple one-time adjustments, but those were in the 80s, the 1990s. There were all sorts of different certain categories of people. If you were retired 20 years ago or 10 years ago or that sort of thing, there were well over a dozen of those types of arrangements.
Mr. Chairman. So Don, I asked the director also. So do we know what the rationale was at those times? As to when we give those 1% increases, if there's no policy out there. What I'm trying to get to, folks, is we should have a rational basis that when X happens, Y triggers. Versus just because we have a group of legislatures now that for some ever reason we want to do this, it should be triggered based on numeric formula, policy constraints, sidelines, sideboards, when and we do and don't do this. So is it when we're flush with federal dollars that we do this? I don't know. But that becomes back to the whole issue. To me, is there parity the way we're doing it? Or is it just a whim of the legislature on that particular year? So I would ask, do we know if there was any particular triggers in any of those times in the 80s or 90s? I'd ask the same thing to the director as to why we did it then. Does that provide the right? Yep, I see Polly's got it.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Hicks, there were a number of adjustments dating way back into the 80s and 90s. And just generally speaking, those were primarily to rectify some differences between the old money purchase plan and the new defined benefit plan that came into place in 1981. So they were really just trying to address some
Disparity in plan.
yes, that had come about through some modernization. They were not what you would really think of as a 13th check, which I think what it might be common to think of a 13th check as something that is trying to address increases in the cost of living, but not making it a permanent obligation to the plan sponsor.
Please.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, is it? Where is it? I thought I had it all day. You want to take it over?
I don't care.
Whichever chairman I'm responding to, thank you. In response to the good senator, I actually agree we should establish a policy and get it and have a standard for doing this. But I would add, since we haven't done it since 2008, whatever that standard is, I can't imagine we wouldn't be meeting it at this point. So I say we do this and moving forward, establish the policy. But I can't imagine denying this on the basis of a lack of policy after 14 years.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I remember 2008 when we did this, and the policy that was there was that the power of the Wyoming retirement system to offer COLAs and improve benefits was removed and registered with the legislature. And I think the policy is an unstated statute, which is, I think you have to be at 105 or 108% before COLAs can be considered. And so the policy is, I think we set it in statute in 2008, and I think that was the policy. And there's certain plans that exceed that value now, but certainly there's the big plan and some others don't. So it is a mixed bag.
Please.
Thank you.
I'll let you go, but we're not going to get anywhere on this. I think we ought to move on once we.
I do have another question.
Okay, all right. Senator Grove, go ahead.
Just one question that Talbot. Now, what I've heard is that we haven't given a COLA adjustment since 2008. But I didn't hear, maybe I just missed it. Have we given any 13th check, any one-time checks, anything else between 2008 and now?
I think we did it for state employee pay raises, but that's it.
But in follow-up, just to make sure I got it all crystallized, in that same time frame, how many times have we raised the cost of their benefit, of this retirement benefit?
Cost of, I'm sorry.
How many times have we raised the cost to the employees of the retirement benefit? In other words, changed their contribution in?
Depends on which plan you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. Don, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think my memory serves, the contributions have increased about 10 times at a quarter rate I am not familiar with any cost of living increase or 13th check type concept.
Yeah, we
since
did that
2008.
stepped contribution increase, but we matched it over time when the fund was heading in the wrong direction.
So if we're done with that, Mr. Chairman, I do
Go ahead.
want to ask another question. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll turn on my. So two questions, and one is, I'm just wondering if on the 10.8, so change the subject to 10.8 million, you've put this together for us, Erica. We appreciate that. And so I guess what I might ask you to do is kind of give us the highlights of this, make sure I'm reading it correctly. And so what the 10.8 million would do and how it would be administered under the plan as you guys would administer it. If you can. Thank you. If I could do that, Mr. Chairman.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Erica Legursky, Policy Advisor for Governor Gordon.
Did you pull that mic
just
a
a little
little
closer?
Sorry. I did ask Director Bach and Aaron Williams to be here as well in case you guys had some detailed questions. So one of the first questions that had come up, or one of the questions that had come up in the conversation, was what was needed to give everybody up to MPP. And that's roughly $88 million is what we would need for the general fund portion, which is the executive branch. So 88 million roughly.
And then what would that numbers be for the remaining branches? I mean, proportionally, we just increased it by almost half, not quite.
So what we would need, Mr. Chairman, on that is with what you guys have already approved, we would need an additional 57 million. If the 10.8 million were to be approved, we would need an additional 51 million, and that's just for the executive branch portion is all that we were looking at. Just to keep in mind, that was run off of August 2021 figures, and that's just, like I said, the executive branch. That doesn't include community colleges and UW.
So Eric, and I'm looking at this, so on your note, make sure, so the proposal for 54 million of general funds, but I think, if I understand what you just said, the 31 million goes to traditional executive branches. And so then when you get to B, it would take $88 million of general funds to biennium. And then I think you just said that it takes another, so to get up to that 88 million to be another 57 million. Is that inclusive or exclusive of the 10? And obviously, I mean, the 57 million, I guess, is the 31 million plus the 57 million. Is that how you get to the 88? So that's just the executive branch agency.
That's just the executive branch. And Mr. Chairman, that the 57 we would need if you did not do the 10.8. If you did the 10.8, we would only need 51.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just kind of continuing on to number 2. What does the 10.8 million do to employees overall? In the figures that HRD ran, it would be approximately a 1% increase over what the state employees were currently going to be getting with the proposal that we had of the 54 million. The next one, Mr. Chairman, for number 3, that was just me kind of putting down on paper what I had explained earlier about the min to min moving from the 2017 pay table min to the 2020 pay table min.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question about that?
Please.
So, and this is kind of what I was trying to get at this morning on our questions. What would be the effect if we designated the 10.8 million to go to raising the tables to the men, from the 2017 men to the 2020 men? If we designated that, so it was to be applied to that, what effect does that have on the plan?
Mr. Chairman, actually, that wouldn't have any effect with the 10.8 because the first thing that we're going to do, regardless of if we get that 10.8, is move everybody to the new min of the 2020 pay tables.
But when we were talking earlier, I thought that only happened, talking this morning, I thought that only happened with a combination of step 1 and then step 2 with respect to, that's the way I understood our conversation this morning, that it only happened when you put both steps together, that we'd be closer to the men, but we would still, it doesn't get you the rest of the way to the 88 million that we were talking about.
Mr. Chairman, so we're going to have to get everybody to the min of the 2020 pay tables. And then, and maybe I misspoke earlier, the conversation with moving people would be to the mid-range or that MPP market range is where not everybody's going to be moved. And that's that step 2.
Okay.
So let me rephrase it a different way. You had 25% and then 75%, right? 25% is bringing everyone up to the base, right? What if we took that 10 million and we, instead of 25%, we put it at 35%. So we would bring the base up higher and then have 65% or 30%, some other number, for the performance merit-based pay. Then with that would bring the bottom up, the overall bottom up higher, right?
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking back. I think what we would have to do is those pay tables are set for 2020. So that may, to your point, we may have to adjust the bottoms of those pay tables, but I think that would cause some different calculations that we're doing currently.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Patricia Bach, A&I Director. In theory, that would be correct. We would have to revamp the entire matrix at that point, though, to really give you an idea what that would do.
So we don't know who that would help and who it wouldn't, other than the folks that are furthest from the MPP.
Chairman Nicholas, correct. The matrix, however, the second step takes that into consideration, how far they are from MPP. So in the matrix, that is contemplated to move those folks quicker from minimum to MPP.
So maybe it'll help if you take us through the example.
Okay.
More specific.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you turn the page over, I did it double-sided. What the 2017 min currently is that 20.04. What we're going to move the min to for 2020 pay tables would be the 2343.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 2343, my understanding was in our example, if I remember right, the 2017 min that was listed in the plan, and that's why I picked this one because it was one of the example categories that was listed in the plan. And that was 37% below the min that we were aiming for. And so when you make this min adjustment for the 2020, so it goes from 2004 to 23, that obviously doesn't get us anywhere close to getting to trying to get to the 90% of the min on that step. So help us understand the rest of the way this works, because that's the first thing where I think at least I'm failing to understand how this exactly works. So that's the question number one. So continue with the example. We'll see, maybe you answer it as we go forward.
Yeah, Trish, are you ready to answer that?
Chairman Nicholas, or Chairman Perkins, Co-Chairman Nicholas, I think the first thing we want to make clear is I think we're mixing up the min and the MPP. So they are 37, the trooper ones, who there are approximately 21 in the state, are 37.7% back from MPP, not from the min.
And Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Well, again, start right there and I have to go slow because I'm not that.
No.
And so on the MPP market is what? I mean, just give me the general definition of MPP market. Is it compared to the 2020 min? What's MPP compared to 2020 min? Help me understand the difference.
Sure, Chairman Perkins, if you look at your table that the governor's office have provided, you'll see in 2017, the minimum was 20.04, $20.04. If you go across, you'll see the MPP market. That is 25.83. So that's where it was in 2017. The same can be said on that second line for 2020.
So, Mr. Chairman, what is the MPP market? I mean, when we say MPP market, I thought the min was 90% I thought it was 9% of MPP, but apparently I'm mistaken.
Chairman Perkins, no, the MPP is market for the 12 comparator states. So for example, when you have a meets expectation, that means you're doing your job as being asked. So you have a meets expectation, you should be making market. You should be making that number. However, we've not been able to fund it to do that. So we've been 90% away from MPP or 90% of MPP or 85% of MPP. That's where we're trying to get to closer. That's why when you look at 37.7% away or 37.7% gap with the troopers, it's a significant gap. When you look at trying to get folks to the 90%, which I think I heard that number this morning, not everybody's going to get to 90% of market. So market is generally where you should be paid if you're doing a good job. You've been there for a while. That's where you should be paid.
Go ahead.
Director Bach, so that MPP market, using the 2017, the 2583, then the next column over is the 3099. Is that the maximum of the MPP market? Or what maximum of what?
Chairman Perkins, Representative Larson, maximum is the maximum of the pay table. They cannot go above that number
Says who?
without approval. So you
Okay.
can't go, you can hire in, as a director, I can hire somebody in up to MPP. Generally speaking, I don't have the budget to do that.
So Mr. Chair, and follow up. So just on the MPP market, that's actually a fixed number and not a range?
Chairman Perkins, Representative Larson, that's a fixed number for each individual classification.
Thank you. That helps me.
And so when you say that it would cost another 51 million to bring people up to NPP, then that would be that 2928, right?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Any other questions on the handout? Senator Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as long as we're still on that table. So with the House, with the amendment, so with the extra 10.8, and someone goes through and is superior in their duties 25, so they're at 2530. That's how far away we are. At 2928 is MPP market. But with all the bells and whistles, if we do everything and they walk on water, they're going to get to 2530 when MPP market's 2928, right? Correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Greer, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So what I don't see is, oh, no, there they are. Never mind. So it's obviously a fairly different pay raise, fairly significant pay raise when you go to Trooper 2 and 3. Well, I mean, if you're, and that typically is after 2 or 3 years.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Perkins, Representative Nicholas, yes, that is typically, if somebody comes in with a bachelor's degree and is motivated, it depends on the person in those Trooper 1 statuses. So once they jump over to Trooper 2, it's about a $1,200 increase a month. And that's because they're going through the law enforcement academy as a Trooper 1. They're in school, they're getting certificates, they're riding along. And that's the way that YDOT has set that up.
So as part of this plan we currently have, how much does the Trooper 2 move up? 1 or 2% or 5% or whatever?
Chairman Perkins, Vice Chair Nicholas, the Trooper 2 and the Trooper 3 are between 7 and 8% lag, significantly better than Trooper 1. And I don't have that number exactly what that would be. It's probably in the book. And I think Ms. Williams might have that by the time we're done here today to give you that answer.
I'm just curious how big of a pay raise they're going to get as compared to Trooper 1.
Chairman Perkins, Vice Chair Nicholas, it will not be as significant as the Trooper 1 to the 2 because they're only 7% back. So it won't be as significant as the Trooper 1.
Go ahead.
So then Director Bott, take us down because I'm not sure that I'm following your meets, commendable and superior language there. And if we could just start with the meets there. So current pay is at 2196. Governor JEC approval would bring that up to 2458, which we're saying is around the, and then with the House amendment, but then that doesn't tell me anything over here on the MPP market thing. I don't know how to track that.
Chairman Perkins, Representative Larson, it's because they don't get to MPP. They are not getting there yet. So that number for MPP is just to show you what the MPP for that classification is. So if they're a superior, they get, everything is perfect. And we have the House amendment, they will receive $25.30 an hour. That is still not at market.
So I think another way to say it is if you take the 2928 and just divide it by 2448, that'll give you the percentage. Right?
Chairman Perkins, Representative Nicholas, absolutely.
Further questions?
So, yeah, Mr. Chairman, but I don't understand because in the front it says that, so it does, oh, okay. We would need approximately 51 million more to get them up to the 2020 MPP. And because we haven't, this would only provide 10 million of that. And so I think I'm finally tracking you. Thank you.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Legursky for putting this memo is excellent and you put it together in just a few hours. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank Representative Stith. That was the hard work of A and I helping me. So thank you.
And she had time to go get Ash Wednesday too.
We actually pulled her out of church, sir.
Oh, man, I hope he'll get punished for that.
Further questions?
I have a question on something else.
Yeah.
So,
Keep going.
Mr. Chairman, changing subject, semi horses on you one more time. If we go to line 39, which is the Veterans Museum in Casper, the 267,421, that decreased to the military department, which was the Veterans Museum in Casper, that budget exception request. Can you just reiterate, if I can just ask Dawn or Elizabeth to reiterate, what was that 267,421 was the GovRec was accepted and then the Senate took some other action. So if we just remind me of what that is, please.
Mr. Chairman, Elizabeth Martineau with LSO. Are you just asking what those exception requests were?
And what they were for.
Okay. This begins on page 63 of the budget request for the military department. The first one was $172,152 of general fund for position funding. It appears that they had a couple of positions that were at part-time and they wanted to move those back up to full-time. The next one is on page 64, $53,151 general fund, and this is for operations funding. And then finally, $42,118 general fund on page 64 to 65, and that was for ETS funding, for ETS related funding.
Go ahead.
I think I've had a bunch of my questions answered. We might like to take a little time out and see if we can come back. We could start some proposals back and forth to resolve some.
Okay. We have one proposal to start with. Just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Get the ball.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
on page 2, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt item number 33, which is Senate second reading number 1, division number 3. So again, that's item number 3. I would move we adopt that. And then I would also move, Mr. Chairman, that we would adopt item number 40, which is House third reading number 4. So 33 and 40, a motion to adopt each of those.
Mr. Chairman, I think we can do better than that. If you give us a minute, I think we can come back and.
All right. We'll give you a minute.
Better.
Mr. Co-Chair, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. We have a counter proposal to your proposal. So if you'll go to page 2, what we do is item 33. Our proposal would be that the JCC would adopt the Senate position on item 33. Item 34 will skip. I think that's really kind of a housekeeping position, so that we'd drop down and we would go to item 39, and just only to the part that deals with the military department, veteran services, that $267,000 related to the Veterans Museum budget exception request, that the Senate would recede from its position on that. The other 2 items will hold for later. On item 40, Department of Agriculture, that the House would recede from its position on item 40. On item 41, the House would recede from its position with respect to the money, that we would adopt the footnote language of the House as modified by, if you go to item 43, provides clarifying language for the Department of Environmental Quality to expend up to $150,000 for the purposes outlined in the footnote. On item 44, that the House would recede from its position. Item 45 is related to item 44, and the House gets related, and so that would also, the House would recede from its position. We delete that amendment. And then item 46, the Senate would retreat from its position on that amendment, which is really just, ultimately, that's already the law, so it's just a restatement of the law. Then going to page 3, item 49, that we would, I think that there's the House would adopt the Senate, we would adopt the Senate position, but I think that there may be some additional, there would be delete and further amend. I think there may be some language to flesh that out a little bit, and we can have a little bit more discussion about that. On item 50, that the Senate that we delete and further amend, and ultimately we would adopt we'd adopt the federal fund appropriation in full. The general fund appropriation, we would adopt half, and that would be for the next fiscal year. And that that if the director cannot match, if the director cannot, if the director can't match that, he can use that, he gets to use that 1/2. If he doesn't need any of it for the match, that would revert, but also that he will come back and report, and if it's not enough and he can't make the rest of the match, he would come back with a request next fall when we do the supplemental budget.
And would that include, if for the possibility, apparently it's getting more and more remote, that if they don't require the match?
And if they don't require, if they don't require a match, then that's not expended, it just reverts. Yeah. Then for item 51, I think that they would adopt the Senate position on item 51, which I think is just clarifying language. And that would be it for page 3. And then on page 4, that the Senate, that we would adopt the House position on item line 69, which is the employee compensation. We would adopt the House position on Senate on item 69, and then we would and the Senate and the House would retreat from its position on item 74, which is the one-time payment from the retirement funds, and that would be the counteroffer we would make.
Okay, we're going to take a really quick break.
I would imagine you need to go visit.
Come up with another one while we're gone.
What is quick to the nearest quarter hour?
Well, I do need to, I see the treasurer back there. And if there, I see Stefan back there. If you guys need him to get some language, I think you take advantage of that. And then Bill and Dawn can talk with you guys for just a minute on not these, but I got some other questions for you. You want to come and join us in the Senate room for a minute? That'd be great.
Okay, we are back. So, Mr. Co-Chair, we very much appreciate the proposal. We will accept the proposal on with one variance.
One variance.
One variance. and that
One
has to do
variance.
With the, what number is 41? 40, that we would adopt 40, which is the $70,000 for range health assessment program. Don, just so everyone is on the same page, and then on the language for the Department of Health, I think that Stefan and Lloyd are working with the language and they'll provide that language to you.
I sent a memo to Lloyd and Stefan and Don based on what Lloyd and I talked about.
And so what we'll do
This
is,
this is on the FMAP language.
Okay.
so what we'll have, we'll just vote in concept if that's what it is. And then David, we'll just make sure that you agree with that language before it
Okay.
comes out.
Sending it to you, Dave.
Okay,
That's fine with me.
so Don, just walk through it one more time, and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Beginning at the top of page 2, adopt Senate second reading amendment number 1, Division 3. Delete the first line of item number 39, Senate second reading amendment number 1, Division 2, only related to the negative $267,000 for the Veterans Museum. Adopt item number 40, House third reading amendment number 4. Delete item number 41, House third reading amendment number 7. Adopt 42 and 43, which is Senate third reading amendment number 4, Division 1, and Senate third reading amendment number 26. Delete items 42 and 45, or excuse me, 44 and 45, which are related. House second reading amendment number 12 and House third reading amendment number 8. Delete item number 46, Senate third reading amendment number 5, Division 1. Delete and further amend item number 49, which is Senate third reading amendment number 23, with subsequent language to be agreed on by the agency assignees to the Department of Health. Delete and further amend item number 50, House third reading amendment number 11. And the delete and further amend is 1/2 of the general funds, 100% of the federal funds. If there is no match required, the funds immediately revert. If the department cannot identify matching funds for fiscal year 2024, they can come forward with an exception request. That's it on page 3.
Well, no, 51, Don?
I'm sorry, yes, adopt item number 51, Senate second reading amendment number 13. On page 4, item number 69, House second reading amendment number 44, adopt. And item number 74, House third reading amendment number 45, delete.
Okay, members, any questions from the Senate? Everybody understand the motion? From my side. Anyway, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
As amended. Go ahead.
Part of the motion. Item number 40 or not?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
That's true.
So, they accepted our proposal with the exception of item 40, but they want, our was that they would delete that. Their counter proposals that we would adopt that.
We would agree to adopt that.
We would agree to adopt the $70,000 for rangeland management. Other than that, that's the only difference between our offer to them and their offer back to us.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Are we ready? All right, all those in, oh, I'm sorry, you're the chairman. Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor as the proposal as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
That motion carries. So, Mr. Co-Chair, what's your pleasure for tomorrow? In terms of getting back together?
Mr. Chairman, we set our committee meeting for referrals, re-referrals, and we might have one of their budget. We set that for noon, trying to leave the morning open to continue this discussion if that's you, and then we'll be available once we get into general file. Our majority floor will give us permission to leave the floor out.
So I think for us, we're also meeting at noon. And so how much, I mean, you want to meet at 9 and see if we've got a proposal? Because there's, we're down to about 4 or 5 items.
Yes, that's, committee members, is that okay with
9's
9
good.
o'clock? Okay, 9 o'clock.
Okay, we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, for sticking through this.